Good morning, everybody. I almost see my breath this morning. I do finally got some propane though. I got the heater running up here in the attic of my garage where I do my chew reviews. The fortress of solitude for all things tobacco related. Today, it's a chew review. I got some chew. I have Stoker's Red Supreme Bold. Um, Slightly different from Stoker's Red Supreme. Here's the Red Supreme packaging. And basically, they inversed it to, instead of red with black lettering, it's black with red lettering and the bold on there. So, yeah. I took a couple pinches of the Red Supreme yesterday just to reacclimate myself to the flavor so I can maybe see if I can tell how much of a difference this one has. This is their standard 3-ounce pouch. I forget what their proportions are here. Foreign, no more than 81%. Domestic, no less than 19%. So, 20% domestic, that's actually pretty good in the chewing tobacco world. This does have a zip top bag, easy for keeps it nice and fresh for you. And if I'm reading the date code correctly, this stuff here was manufactured just in August. So lots of life left in this particular pouch, which is good because in order to get this, I had to order 12 of them. So I really hope I like it. I got 10 pouches in the freezer for long-term storage. I got one out in my truck waiting to be opened. And then I got this one here in my hands that I'm going to do for the review for the first time. So, let me crack this bad boy open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 glue dots on this one. This one got a little extra love on the assembly line. The Ziploc is sealed. Nice, moist, tobacco-y goodness. Looks like one blonde bit in there. Oh, I got a stem. Look at that baby. Yeah. Extremely moist, though. Very moist and pliable stem. But sitting right on top of everything, saying hi. So, it doesn't come off initial sniff. It's not smelling as sweet as the regular Red Supreme. It is coming across very raisiny molasses and stuff, but it's not as strong for the regular Red Supreme. Because I've some of the reviews I've seen, one of them was sweeter than the other. So, judging by this smell, I would say the regular Red Supreme is sweeter than the bold, which means they probably call this bold because more of the tobacco flavor is allowed to come through. I'm going to find out here in just a few seconds. This pouch got a little smushed in packaging. Look at that. One solid, humongous clump. Let me fluff that up a little bit, get a better muddy shot for you. Fluffy, fluffy. I'm being a fluffer right now. So I know that has some derogatory terms, but I have to look it up because I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm old and I don't travel in those circles, so I'm sorry. There. Ooh, look at that. Big, long baby in there. Very moist. Nice and tacky to the feeling. Most of it's nice and dark. Some golden colored bits in there as well. Get some light in there. Let you bask in its tobacco glory. Yeah, definitely a little on the tacky side. And I can't contain myself anymore. I'm going in. I love chew. This stuff is... You don't do this for the nicotine, you do this for the taste. And chew has some wonderful taste. That's a bit of a big pinch, but this is good. Good thing, because I got 12 pouches of it. Initial taste, Mikey likes it. Oh, yeah. Give this a minute to juice up. History for the day. A frontiersman most people have never heard of. His name is Christopher Gist, Gist. He is responsible for the initial surveys, mapping, and exploration of what they call the Ohio country. The Ohio country basically is from what is modern day Pittsburgh and western Pennsylvania, all the way into Ohio, and then south to northwestern Virginia, that entire region. Um, Gist explored that region in 1750. He was hired by the Ohio Company to survey the region, gather, excuse me, gather prospects, potential sites for future colonies and settlements, and virtually was relatively an unoccupied area, just nothing but natives. Natives and a few French trappers, so that's pretty much it. He spent nearly a year surveying the area, checking the rivers. In his journals, he highly recommended a site for settlement, but it was too far into the territory at the moment, so the Ohio Company passed on it in his initial review. That area is what is now Cincinnati, Ohio. After his initial journey in 1750, he went back again in 1752. And then in 1753, the governor of the Virginia colony, upon approval from the crown, had hired Gist to escort a young major in the British Army to go to Fort Le Boeuf, a French fort in the Ohio country, and basically demand that the French leave the area because the crown had laid claim to that region. So in 1753, in late October, early November, Gist, the major, a couple of them native guides, and a couple of other men, they set out to go to Fort Le Boeuf to issue this message to the French. This young major was eager. He had just got his commission. No experience whatsoever. No experience in diplomacy. He didn't know anything about the natives in the area. He didn't speak French. Wet behind the ears. Just got his commission. Young officer, eager to prove himself, and he was supposed to get there and back as quickly as possible, which caused a little bit of contention between him and his guide, Mr. Gist. There are a couple of, one account, they got to a creek. The weather had been rainy and stuff. The creek had swollen up, and Gist is like, nope, we can't cross here on horseback. We'll have to wait till the morning. We'll build a raft. We'll ferry the supplies over, and then we'll swim the horses across. And the young major is like, I've crossed stuff like this before. And Gist literally had to get in front of his horse and like, no, trust me, you don't want to do this. We will kill one of our pack horses doing this, and then it'll slow us down even more. The major took his advice. They eventually made it up to the fort. The major gave the letter to the French demanding that they leave the area because the crown had claimed that area. And in true French arrogance, they made them wait for 2 days before the French said, no, we're not leaving. Get lost. I can see the French commander in the fort. Ha, 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 ha. Make those Britons, make them wait another day. Ha, ha, ha. Just egging them on. Well, by then the major is really antsy. It's taken him much longer than he anticipated to get there, and he was really wanting them to get back. They're like a month in right now. It took them a month to get there. This is now late December. So they start heading back. The weather was getting worse. It was getting harder for them to go. The pack horses were having a hard time finding forage for the horses. The horses were exhausted. And it got to the point that the major told Gist, he's like, okay, we're leaving the horses behind. We're leaving the rest of the men behind. You and me, we're heading out on foot. We're going to hoof it back down to the British fort and report our findings. Gist reluctantly agreed. So they started heading south towards the British British fort to report everything. Um, After the first day, they had traveled 18 miles out of the 100 miles they had to go. And the young major was falling behind because he didn't realize just how rough it would be covering that much territory in one day with a pack. They didn't have aluminum, they didn't have Gore-Tex. It was probably a stinking heavy pack. Well, just like, hey, there's a native village, native town, not too far from here. We'll stop there. We'll rest for the night. Ironically, the town was called Murdering Town. This chew is delicious. Not as sweet as the Red Supreme regular, but it does have plenty of sweetness to it. I'm getting some tobacco flavor. Pretty good. Well, they get to Murdering Town, and the major hires a guide to guide them. Just like, no, we don't need a guide. I know where we're going. Well, the guide offered to carry the major's pack and lead them through and hunt game for them. The major's like, sure, come on. So they head out. They leave at night, heading out on the trail, and Gist senses something's wrong. His woodsman sense kicking in. He's like, this guy's taking us north. We're supposed to be going south. Something's wrong. He sensed they were being led into an ambush or a trap or something. Well, it turns out that native guide sympathized with the French, not the British. And so after they'd gone for a couple of miles in the wrong direction, the native guide turned around and took a shot at the major. He missed. Some accounts say he missed. Some accounts say that his musket misfired. Not sure which one. So Gist disarmed the guide, took his weapon away from him, and he was going to kill him. But the major's like, no, just let him go. So they let him go. They turned around, headed back the right way. They made it to the Allegheny River. And they decided they were going to have to make a raft and get across the river. They had one hatchet between them. It took them a full day to construct a raft. So as dusk is setting, they attempt to cross the river. Once they get into the river, there's chunks of, the temperature's dropping. This is late December, early January. There's chunks of ice floating down the river. They've got these poles they're using to maneuver their way. Well, they get caught up in the current. The current starts throwing them downstream. Chunks of ice are bumping into them, and they finally get stuck in an ice dam. There's a bunch of ice around them. The pole snaps, and the major gets thrown overboard. Gist, luckily, is able to grab the major, yank him out back onto the raft. By this time, I figured Gist is probably just a little ticked off. Some of the accounts, they're kind of, it's all glamorous the way they used to write back then. He pulled the young major out onto the raft. No, it's more like, you stupid kid, get over here, that guy's won't kill. That's probably what it was like. But now they've lost their poles for navigating. They break free of that ice. They're floating downriver. There's a small island up ahead. As the raft is passing by the island, they jump off and they wade through the icy waters onto the small island. Well, the major is soaked from head to toe in icy cold water. He's probably got hypothermia kicking in. He's going to be dead before too long. Gist isn't much better. He's wet from the waist down from jumping off the raft. He's trying to start a fire with flint and steel. His fingers are so numb that he can't do it. So he uses an old frontiersman's trick. He takes his rifle, lays out a piece of cloth, puts a bunch of gunpowder on it, and uses the flint from the rifle to ignite the powder. Gets a fire going finally. Builds up a nice big fire. They get their stuff dried. The major, none worse for the wear. He recovers. A little bit of frostbite. But they actually they bonded at that time and formed a friendship. Because in just a couple of days, Gist has saved this guy twice. Once from the native who took a shot at him. And he just, took his rifle away before the guy could reload. And the second time, helping him get out of that icy river and then getting a fire going to save his life. That young major, George Washington. Yeah. Christopher Gist saved George Washington's life twice. Had he not being able to pull him out of that river and get a fire going, our passports would probably look a lot different right now. So, yeah, a young 21-year-old George Washington and a frontiersman in his late 40s at the time. They they actually got to be pretty good friends. By the time it took them 2 months to get back to the British fort. By the time that a month to get to get insulted by the French, another month to get back, they'd become good friends at that point. And Gist actually served with Washington during the French and Indian Wars a few years later. His son fought in the Revolutionary War. Gist himself died of smallpox in either North Carolina or Georgia in 1759, just a few years after that incident. But yeah, a frontiersman, not many people know about, responsible for mapping out most of the Ohio country, saved the father of our country twice, and most people don't know who he is. Christopher Gist saved a young major by the name of George Washington on his first expedition on behalf of the Virginia colony. There's your history for that day. Back to the chew. I'm enjoying this. It's not as sweet as the regular Red Supreme. That being said, it's still plenty sweet. Plenty sweet, plenty moist, really good flavor. This is allowing the tobacco to come through because it's not quite as sweet, which I think is what the bold is for. Because I can actually tasting tobacco notes underneath the molassesy sweetness. Now that it's juiced up good and I got the flavor going good, it's one reason why I like talking for a few minutes, just allow the flavors to develop. But yeah, this is good stuff. And one thing I have noticed with the Stoker's chews is the flavor doesn't last quite as long as with other chews, mainly because of the moisture content. You don't have to wait for it to juice up quite as much. And after about 25-30 minutes, it's pretty much gone. But you know what? I usually keep chewing my mouth for about 25 or 30 minutes anyway. So, the Stoker's makes a solid product. This is the third chew I've tried of theirs. This is good stuff. It's not as overly sweet as the regular Red Supreme. So, if Red Supreme is too sweet for you, give the Bold a shot. Got plenty of sweetness still. It's not as balanced as Beech Nut is. Beech Nut is not quite as sweet. This stuff, plenty of sweetness, but it's just dialed back enough. You get tobacco flavor. You can actually taste some of the tobacco notes coming through, which I believe is what they were going for when they called it bold. The boldness is tobacco. Anyway, I've been rambling on for 18 minutes now. I'm going to let you guys go because I'm going to continue to enjoy this. Yeah, these 12 pouches are not long for this world. I know that right now. Stoker's Red Supreme Bold, if you haven't tried it, it's worth a shot. A lot of the same flavor profiles as Red Supreme, just not as sweet, which allows the tobacco to come through. But it's overall, it's good. It holds up. It's holding up incredibly well. It's it's so moist out of the bag that it almost instantly just balls up in your cheek, and you can just sit here and just pull a little bit out of your molars every now and then, give it a gnaw, throw it back in, and it holds up quite well. But anyway, Christopher Gist saved George Washington. Thank you, Mr. Gist, and your descendants, wherever you may be. This is Mikey. This has been Stoker's Red Supreme Bold. I will catch you guys later. Bye.